It says we're live. Hello, hello. It's Tuesday and it's 4 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock here in Costa Rica, 7 o'clock on the East Coast, midnight in Dublin, 1 a.m. in London and most of Europe, 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. Wednesday morning in Australia, somewhere around 3 in the afternoon in New Zealand. I never get that one straight. And it's Facebook Live. Hello, everyone. Welcome and thanks for being here. My guest today, I'm really happy to share with you my friend, Dr. Evan Hirsch. And before we get into anything else about Dr. Hirsch, our COO, Ann, is on screen with her lovely little boy, Logan. And hi, Logan. Hi, Logan. And Ann's on because she's going to play a video here that I wanted to start with. This is something Marzi put together this morning that's on our Instagram page of our son, Gio. So we're going to play this for you to welcome you to today's Facebook Live. It's the book of your life. It's the book of your life, and it's Facebook Live. That was our son this morning. That's what we wake up to, and you know, it makes it all worthwhile, you know, all of it worthwhile. So let me read a little about Dr. Hirsch so that I don't miss anything. And please excuse me, my glasses broke a little while ago today. You know, we've got a little baby now, and things happen, and I haven't gotten another pair this afternoon. Dr. Evan Hirsch, after graduating medical school, my friend Dr. Evan Hirsch found himself battling symptoms of chronic fatigue. As he went to conferences, read books, evaluated the research, he began to compile a list of the causes of chronic fatigue. In medical school, he was taught, if you don't think of it, you won't diagnose it. So he broadened his differential diagnosis to include all potential causes. Many of these causes he was able to find in conventional textbooks. However, the testing methods to determine which causes were present were lacking. With functional medicine, however, he found the testing methods he needed to assess these potential causes. He implemented what I was learning with his own health and with his clients and was very pleased with the success. And he was resolving very challenging autoimmune medical conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, diabetes, and more. Get a notebook because this is going to be a powerful Q&A. So that's my friend, Dr. Evan Hirsch. Dr. Hirsch, welcome.
Hey, Dr. Tom, thanks so much for having me on.
You bet, you bet. And as is true with many of our guests, there's an event that may be coming up, a new book coming out or something, or an event, and you and I have an event that we've been working on for the better part of a year. And can you tell us a little about that?
Absolutely. So this event is going off June 14th. It's going to last until June 20th. And this is the Hidden Causes event, Fatigue and Autoimmunity Workshop. So the reason why this is a workshop is because it's going to be really practical. Every single day, we're going to be in that Facebook group and we're going to be helping you figure out your causes of fatigue and autoimmunity, which really is the first step in resolving those problems. So we want to make this incredibly practical and applicable to your life so that when you're done with this event, you're going to have in your hands 75% of these causes, because we're going to focusing on your symptoms and we don't even have to worry about the labs. We'll find 75% of these causes and you will be armed with these causes so then you can go fix them.
Most of it, that's great. That's really great. And the reason that I decided to do this with Dr. Hirsch is because of his reputation and his personal experience with dealing with chronic fatigue. And this guy is no joke. He knows what he's doing. And so I was invited to, I was asked to consider, would I do an event with him like has never been done before? And that caught my attention right away, right? So yes, and what we're doing, because all of you have attended summits and the thyroid summit or the gluten summit or other summits. One of the things that's so unique and different here is that we're going to be online with you every day after the guest speakers have shared their information that we're interviewing them about, their area of expertise. But then we're going to be there to answer questions every day. And hopefully you can learn, you'll hear something that was new for you, maybe from Dr. Keisha Ewers. And you've got a question about, well, that would mean ... And you're going to type it in and ask us in the Facebook Lives for this event, well, what about what Dr. Keisha said on this? And we're going to be there to answer it for you. So are we able to register them now? Can they pre-register? Do you know?
Yes, absolutely, they can.
Great, then we'll post the link. My team is here. They'll post the link so you can register now to attend this event in June with us. So it's actually very exciting. And I'll tell you, Dr. Hirsch and I shared the interviews. We said, well, I'll take this guy. And well, I know I'll take this guy, and I'll take this person and this person. So we went back and forth with it. And I'll tell you, some of the interviews I did were so exciting for me. For example, when I interviewed my mentor, Dr. Jeff Bland, the founder of functional medicine, and on this, and it was just jaw-dropping what he had to say. And Dr. Hirsch, who are a couple of the interviews that you did, the interviewees that really startled you with the information?
So I think one of them was Dr. Ivker, who has been president of the American Holistic Medical Association and written the book on sinus survival. And a lot of people don't realize that chronic sinus conditions can be a cause of fatigue. And those sinus conditions can have several causes to them. So we kind of go through about what those different causes potentially can be and then how to resolve them. So that was a really interesting one. And then there was, let's see, there was a really interesting one also with on mitochondrial dysfunction with Dr. Terry Walls. Always interesting to talk to her about the latest research on mitochondria. And gosh, there were so many good ones.
Yeah.
Lloyd Burrell and EMF.
Especially with Dr. Walls, because one of the questions that came up that we talked about that we wanted to get answered is what's the overlap between autoimmunity and fatigue? And of course, Dr. Walls is the go-to expert in the world on multiple sclerosis. And what did you find in your talks with her that seemed to overlap with things that you had heard or had been operating from in the past?
So it's really about these toxicities that we're exposed to. So when something comes into the body that's not supposed to be there, whether it's heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, allergies, negative emotional patterns, electromagnetic frequencies, all that crap that we're not supposed to be exposed to, when it comes into the body, the immune system sees it and tries to get rid of it. And it mounts a reaction. And that can trigger a cascade that leads to autoimmunity. Now, it just so happens that those toxicities, that crap, can also damage a lot of the machinery that's making energy. And so that's where we get that crossover.
Right. That's really great to know about. And many of our attendees here have heard some reference to that in the past about, because it's such a big one for me, the whole thing about toxicity and accumulated toxins. And I'm so happy to see that it's becoming more common conversation when talking about health than it was a year ago, a year and a half ago. So people are starting to understand more about this. And we're going to talk about a lot of solutions and pearls in this event of how do you reduce your levels of toxicity. But before we get into that further, I'm going to do a shout out here, as I always do with Facebook Live. First one on today was Amal in Marina Del Rey. Hello, Amal. Dorada's in New York, Marie's in Toronto, Gwendolyn's in New Zealand, and it's 11 a.m. on Wednesday morning. I never knew. Thank you, Gwendolyn. Good to know that it's just a couple of hours later than it is in Australia. So that's really, and thank you for joining. Thank you so much. Brandy's here from Louisiana. Lucia is here from Tucson. Thank you so much for all you do for us. Thank you, Lucia. There's the post for the Hidden Causes workshop with Dr. Hirsch and I. Yvonne's here from Alabama. Cindy's from Pennsylvania. Cindy says, I've already signed up. Thank you, Cindy. Lucia says, I'm in already. Thank you, Lucia. Errol says, hello, I had a functional MRI and in it, my cerebellum needed improvement and the fear center of my brain was at a 1. And doctor told me that meant if you took 100 people, I'm more fearful than 99 of them, which isn't great. What health implications can fear lead to? Thanks. It's a really good question. Well, the first thing that I would say is the health implications of any area of your brain that has been altered and is not as functional as it should be. The mechanism is inflammation. It's always inflammation. Could be toxicity that got in there, could be a parasite, could be accumulated chemical residue, could be from food sensitivities and the macromolecules got through a leaky brain in there, but it's inflammation and inflammation that wears down your cerebellum. So the first thing to do is to, exactly as Dr. Evan was saying about inflammation from these toxins that our immune system's trying to protect us. And when your cerebellum degenerates, it's because of inflammation that's been going on for a long time. So we go back to the same concept of what are the primary inflammatory triggers in my life? What have I not yet really gotten a handle on in terms of my exposures? Now, it can be things that are already internal, like heavy metal accumulation in your body that's triggering that inflammation. Or it could be external, what's on the end of your fork or what you're breathing. You have a moldy house or you live near a freeway and the particulate matter from the diesel exhaust, you're breathing it in. So those triggers, those environmental triggers can be outside, and depending on how much work you've already done, perhaps you've minimized some of that, or they can be inside, still considered an environmental trigger, activating your immune system to protect you, that's causing the inflammation, that's destroying the cerebellum, in your case, reducing the size of your cerebellum. So I'm all for understanding that that area of the brain has particular functions. In my book, it's very similar to autistic kids. You know, when they do a special type of MRI called a SPECT scan in the brain, looking where's blood flowing really well and where is it not flowing, they identify areas where it's not flowing very well. And that could be an area that generates fear, or that could be an area that generates anxiety, or that could be an area that generates repetitive behavior. And in the studies that I've looked at with autistic kids that have the same pattern, like repetitive behavior, they all have a lack of blood flow into the same area of the brain. And that area of the brain, when it's not functioning well, will cause repetitive behavior. A different area of the brain will trigger the desire for sameness. They want the same color clothes, they want the same food all the time, whatever it is. So your particular symptoms, as important as they are to keep in mind, are not what you focus on. What you focus on is where is the inflammation coming from that's activating these symptoms. So I want to make sure that we have that as a background understanding that you are looking from as you're addressing this particular thing that's been diagnosed for you. Dr. Evan, do you want to elaborate on that one a little more?
Sure. And I would come at it from a little bit of a different angle. You talked about the physical stuff and a lot of the inflammation from the toxins. I would say that also there's something very important called neuroplasticity, which means you can change the brain, and you can change the brain with your thoughts. So if this is the fear center of the brain, by doing practices around mindset and working on your emotional health, you can change that part of your brain. So we're working on not just the physical side of things, but also the mental, emotional side. So you can do things like a gratitude practice. Research shows that just 3 gratitudes per day, and they can be the same gratitudes every single day, can help to reshape the brain. Things like envisioning what your ideal life looks like, looking at what your limiting beliefs are and flipping them into your empowering beliefs so that you feel empowered every day. And then any questions, negative questions that you're asking yourself on a regular basis, do the same thing, flip them on their head and make them into empowering questions so that you're asking yourself things like, what can I do today to help my health even more? Or what can I do today to love the people in my life even more? Those are a lot more empowering questions than asking yourself, why is this always happening to me? Why do I feel so bad? Because the brain is a goal achieving machine. It's like Google. You ask it a question, it's going to give you an answer. And if you don't ask it the right question, you're not going to get the right answer that's actually going to be supportive for you. So in combination with what you said, I think that's a complete package.
That's really empowering. It's an empowering message that you've just given. That's so true. And we have to remember, base hits win the ball game. It's all the little things you do repetitively that accumulatively will make the difference. And so addressing the emotional or the spiritual side of health is just as important when you're wanting to um, adjust your level of neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to adapt to new things. And as opposed to dwelling on things that may scare you, if you purposely have the exercise, the determination, I'm doing this exercise every day. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to give it a try. And then you do gratitude or whatever other exercises. That's a really important component to include. Well
Yeah,
said.
I think, thank you. And I think that you made a very good point there where, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. You may not feel a ton of gratitude, but just by doing it every single day, you're going to eventually start to feel that gratitude. So just do it and you'll be successful.
When I started doing 3 gratitudes in the morning when I wake up, before getting out of bed, I started doing that. And some mornings, my eyes are still closed. I don't know. I don't know. I'm tired. There would be this yabba, yabba, yabba in my brain. I said, no, just do it. Just whatever. I say, well, I'm grateful I woke up. I'm grateful I woke up. And I say, oh, I'm grateful for my wife, and I'm grateful for my children. And then all of a sudden, open the eyes, start the day. Life's a little bit peachier, just a
Right.
little bit. So it's the persistence declaring what you want, that you want a brighter outlook on life. Then the persistence of these little exercises make a huge impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to tell everyone, this is exactly what we're going to do in the Q&As during our event. And that's why the link's there for you guys to register, because we're not going to hold back at all. We really want to be the catalyst for people to make substantial headway in their desire for higher levels of health.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Nancy's here from Glenview. Oh, Nancy, I lived 23 years behind Walker Brothers on Waukegan. So welcome from Glenview. Jillian's here from Cleveland. Marilyn's here from Newfoundland. Hello, and thank you, Marilyn, for the 2 hearts. Maria says, a few years ago, I experienced a stress fracture and was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And just a minute, I'm scrolling and autoimmune thyroid shortly thereafter. There we go. I have been following a very strict autoimmune protocol of gluten-free, grain-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, nightshade-free diet. I also live a clean and toxin-free lifestyle, trying to detox, watching my sleep, etc. My concern is that my foot and ankle swells up and hurts even from the most gentle exercise, even if I use my vibration plate on the lowest level for 1 minute. My physical therapist prescribed for me some home stretching and strengthening exercises with not much success. I started to use castor oil on it and increased my collagen intake. I also use infrared sauna. Is there anything else I can do to eliminate the swelling and pain? Should I do more detoxing? Dr. Hirsch, you want to start with that one?
Sure. So it's all about finding the causes, and we're going to be talking about this a lot on the event. And so your causes of autoimmunity, whether it's the autoimmunity to the thyroid with the Hashimoto's, or the autoimmunity, which is the rheumatoid arthritis, has definitive causes. Now, there are 10 categories of causes and all these toxicities, and most of the people that I see have multiple causes. In fact, everybody that I see with fatigue have multiple causes. And those who have autoimmunity just go a little bit deeper and have more severity on certain causes. So whether it's heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, allergies, negative emotional patterns, electromagnetic fields, you have to figure out which causes you have, because then you're going to be able to remove those causes and you're going to decrease the inflammation, and that's going to improve your symptoms.
Perfect, perfect. And I'm going to kind of rock your boat a little bit here, because my experience that there was a very famous surgeon in England named Edward Bach, B-A-C-H, and he was around the turn of the 19th century into the 20th century to 1910, 1920. He was so good, he became knighted, Sir Edward Bach. And and matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, I think it was, on Facebook Live, we had Anne-Louise Gittleman, one of the masters and the greats in the field. We talked about Bach remedies quite a bit and how beneficial they are. But Bach, this very science-oriented, well-respected guy, a friend of his came to him who was having severe gallbladder symptoms. And Bach said, oh, it's your gallbladder. We'll take out the gallbladder. You'll be fine. And come back and we'll do it. And the guy never came back. And he saw him sometime later and he said, hey, what happened? You never came back. And he said, oh, a friend gave me this oil that I just rubbed under my nose, and it was the oil of some flower, and my pain was gone in one day. And Bach said, what? Ridiculous, ridiculous. But he knew his friend was a very clear-headed fella, not to exaggerate. So Bach looked into this, and he discovered what later became known as the Bach flower remedies. And what Bach discovered is that if you have gallbladder problems, you likely have a bitter attitude in life, and because gallbladder deals with bitters. And there were some flowers that would help deal with bitters and bitter attitudes. Or if you had heart problems and symptoms, you had heartache in your life. And if you had colon problems or symptoms, you had a poopy attitude about life. And there were flowers that would help change the way people look at the world. I tell you all that because every rheumatoid arthritis patient I've ever seen, and I'm not this direct about it usually until the second visit, but here, this is Facebook Live, and I'm just going to rock your boat a little bit. What are you so upset about? What are you angry about? That rheumatoid patients carry a lot of suppressed anger. And I've seen it time and time and time again. And yes, you can get great results by addressing the heavy metals or the electromagnetic pollution or whatever the trigger is that Dr. Hirsch is referring to. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what we usually do at theDr.com, is go through the checklist. But with rheumatoid, especially with rheumatoid, not as strongly with any of the other autoimmune diseases have I clinically seen this as frequently, but with rheumatoid, people are angry. They're angry about something that happened to them in life that's been suppressed. They're angry about something, and it's so deep, it just eats away at your joints. And that's rheumatoid. So you might want to do a little reading or exploring the Bach flower remedies, and just read a little about Bach and see if that this kind of makes a little sense. All right, and you're going to sit and have a quiet meditation or a prayer and well, what am I? No, that's not it. I'm not angry about that. And then you think about something else. Say, wait. What was that you just suppressed? What was that? Because that's usually where you're going to find it, is in the one that you don't want to look at. Right?
Amen.
From Shanquila, can mold lead to fatigue? I was told you have to rid mold from sinuses to heal. How do you do that? Dr. Hirsch?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I find that mold and the chronic infections, the stealth infections, Lyme, Bartonella, Babesia, Anaplasma, Candida, they are huge when it comes to chronic fatigue and myalgic encephalitis. So absolutely. And that's actually one of the first things that I tell people is that if there's one test that you need to do, it's to make sure you are not living in mold. Second test that you need to do is to see whether or not you have mold in your body. And once you figure that out, then you can remediate your environment, and it's not as complicated as you think it might be. There's a lot of different things that you can do that aren't going to cost you, tens of thousands of dollars. And then there's a lot that you can do to get it out of your body. And oftentimes we're binding things up, we're pulling them out using certain detoxifying agents. But you have to make sure that you've opened up your detoxification pathways first. Otherwise, you're going to be dumping all of these toxins into these pathways that aren't open, and they're going to get right back absorbed into the body. Part of my story and part of the reason why I got fatigue is that I pooped once a week for the first 22 years of my life until I found out that that wasn't normal. So all of these toxins I was trying to get out of my body, they were just getting reabsorbed because I wasn't having good flow throughout the day. So hope that helps.
Really good answer. And I'd like to go back to the last question about the rheumatoid and first say, Maria, kudos to you for all the hard work you're doing. You're going down the checklist and you're staying with it. You're determined. That's really clear in your question that you're on top of so much of this. And I don't mean to be flippant at all, but there's something missing. And to your question of should I continue, should I do more detox? The answer is if you're toxic. We don't know if you're toxic or not. But if you are, now there's a really great little screen that's not comprehensive to the whole body and levels of toxicity, but it's a helpful tool. It's called a liver blemish. And what you do is that you practice on your partner or your daughter or son or something, but you just practice so that you can see this, and you take shirt off so the back, the shoulder blades are exposed, and you press on the shoulder blade, you press on the skin between the shoulder blades. So here's one shoulder blade, here's another shoulder blade, here's your spine in the middle, and there's some muscles between the spine and the shoulder blades, right? There's muscles on both sides. You press into that muscle, take your finger off, and you see that it's kind of a white outline of your finger that you just pushed in, right? So you push it in, you take your finger off, you go, and you look, how long does it take for it to look like the surrounding skin? So how long does it take for the blood to flow back into where you just created a blemish? So you push in, take your 1,000, 2, 1,000, it's done. Other side, push in, 1,000, 2, 1,000, it's done. And you do like 3 areas. The shoulder blade's usually about this big. So you do the top, the middle, the bottom. And what people find when you push in there, sometimes 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. Wow, well, 6. Well, is that right? I better do that again. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. Yeah, 6. You have a 6-second liver blemish. Now, what does all that mean? Anytime you eat anything, it goes into the gut, and when it gets absorbed into the bloodstream, the only place it can go is to the liver. Nothing can go anywhere else. It goes to the liver, the foods that you eat. Why? because of the close to 500 functions of your liver. A primary function is that it's an oil filter. It cleans the oil, right? It cleans the blood. So anything, if you drop an apple on the ground, you pick it up, you wipe it off and you eat it, but there's some dirt and the dirt gets into your bloodstream, goes to the liver. Your liver grabs all that. And it's no way, Jose, no way. And then it goes out in the bile through the gallbladder. It gets escorted out, whatever is not supposed to be there, okay? So what happens for people, we grow up eating French fries and Three Musketeers and ho-hos and whatever else. So our livers, our oil filters get dirty. Many people have a dirty oil filter and the liver's not quite working as well as it should. So when the blood comes through the liver and then goes out to the rest of the body, the first place it goes is right past that area in your back between the shoulder blades. It goes, so you press in there and the blood flow in that area, if it's sluggish, because you got a dirty oil filter, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000. You got a dirty oil filter. So if you're 1 second, 2 seconds, you're great, good to go. And you check your family every 6 months or a year. And you may find that they've been great for 3 years in a row. And all of a sudden, one time your son, who's now a teenager, and you come here, leave me alone, Mom. Come here. And you press on his back, and you count an 8-second liver blemish. And you do it again, and it's 8 seconds. And he's got acne now because he's a teenager. No, it's not because he's a teenager. It's because he's as toxic as can be. So a general indicator that it might be of value to do more detoxification work, focusing on detox, is to check liver blemish. It's not a slam dunk cure-all for everything around toxicity, but it's a good indicator that maybe it'll be a good idea to put some more attention on detoxing.
I love that.
Okay. Christy asks, please address relapsing fatigue spells that may be associated with chronic viral issues and/or Lyme and Babesia. Many thanks.
You want me to take that one?
Hirsch, you bet.
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, you're having, what's this person's name?
Christy.
So Christy, you're having these relapsing spells where your energy is good for a period of time and then you crash for a period of time. So what's really interesting is that, and you named it, there's a lot of different infections that work in cycles. They're moving through the body, and oftentimes the immune system is going to be reactive to them at different times of the month. Sometimes they're reacting every couple of days, sometimes they're reacting every couple of weeks, and sometimes it's every couple of months. The reality of the situation is that whatever infection is doing that needs to be remedied. So I think this is your question, hopefully, but you want to make sure that you figure out which infection it is, once again, coming back to the causes, and then you want to make sure you're addressing it appropriately. And there's a lot of great stuff that you can do naturally. There's a lot of herbal combinations, depending on which infection you're dealing with, that you can take that can help resolve that infection. Now, what you have to remember, though, is you have to remember that those detoxification pathways have to be open so that you don't get what's called a Herxheimer reaction or a die-off reaction, where the bug dies, releases its toxins into the body, the immune system reacts to it, and you feel worse. So that's just kind of a caveat, but definitely figure out which infection it is so that you can remedy it appropriately.
Christy has another comment. Before I get to that one, though, I want to say hello to Kiara Berry, and hello from west of Ireland. So wait a minute, if you're west of Ireland, are you out in the ocean? Where, you mean Western Ireland, or the west of Ireland? Okay. Hello, Kiara. Thanks for joining us. Christy also said, I'm not sure it's so simple. Sometimes it's actually next to impossible to pinpoint an exact cause. Even when we think we know the, quote, cause, we or our functional medicine practitioners are often wrong. Testing for Lyme and co-infections is notoriously terrible. Even if we get a positive test for something, it's not always a 1-1 correlation where we can definitely attribute our fatigue to that issue. I think it's more relevant to find treatments, ways of living, etc., that are useful for a wide variety of conditions: homeopathy, infrared sauna, being in nature, etc. And Christy, that's a very astute and profound observation on your
Yep.
part that likely came out of a lot of frustration, and trying to identify things. You're absolutely right that lifestyle is the contributor to the vast majority of all of what we're suffering from. And so changing lifestyle habits has a profound impact. But coupled with that, if you've got high levels of mercury in the brain, you've got to get the mercury out of there, right? If you've got high levels of bacteria in your body, you've got to get that bacteria out of there as best you can. If you've been accumulating toxic chemicals because your father was a firefighter, and I don't know if you folks know this, but children of firefighters have over 30% increased risk of asthma just across the board because dad's clothes are full of chemicals when he comes home, and mom washes all the clothes in the same washing machine. Baby's clothes, infants' clothes get these chemicals on them, and then baby develops asthma. Very, very common, right? So you still need to do the deep dive into looking for triggers, the environmental triggers and such. And I read your second comment, Christy, and I thought this is profound. This is really good that she is making this observation, once again, most likely out of frustration. And we have this program called the Inner Circle here at theDr.com. They'll post a link to it here. And it's for people who have been like Christy through the mill. They've tried everything and they're better, but they're not right yet. So something's missing. And so there's a bunch of tests that are done, and people have consults with Michelle Ross, our director of clinical services, but they also get a consult with me. And I did one yesterday with a woman a middle-aged woman who has been suffering for a number of years with autoimmune diseases. And it took and she's very receptive and very open and wants to be well. And it took about 5 to 7 minutes to ask a question that had her crying, just crying. And not because of an assault from me, but rather just opening up a venue that she said, I know I have to look at that. I know I do. Because the emotional or the spiritual side is often a missing link in getting the results in the physical side. Because emotional toxicity and the stress that emotional toxicity causes produces stress hormones that override the peaceful as parasympathetic nervous system, as our relaxed nervous system completely overrides. No discussion, no way to change it. When you activate that stress response, it's a fight, flight, or fright. And humans were designed hundreds of thousands of years ago that sympathetic nervous system stimulation overrides parasympathetics. No discussion, because you can be as mellow as can be, just been daydreaming for a while, or been meditating for 2 hours and, just in a whole nother state. But you hear the growl of a saber-toothed tiger, you don't think, well, I'm not sure I want to get worked up about this. It's an immediate response, and you can't control it. And our not fully experienced experiences earlier in life that we didn't have the tools to deal with, so that experience got suppressed in our body, and it stays there, and it manifests as fear, or it manifests as anxiety. And so anything that triggers a little fear for you brings up saber-toothed tiger levels of hormones to protect you. And that's what it was for this woman, right? And so it was just obvious because she had done so many other things. And so I've recommended her to a hypnotherapist to work with some of that, a really good one. But my point is, it's not always the biochemistry. It's not always what you eat or what you breathe. I mean, those are first on the checklist. You got to get those out of the equation first. So you have to find out all of that stuff, Christy. And if your immune system is fighting wheat, you can't eat wheat. What's the matter with you? That's just triggering the saber-toothed tiger response. Well, I can have a little and I'll feel fine. No, you can't. Whether you feel the symptoms or not, you can't. And some of you have heard me say, you can't be a little pregnant. You can't have a little wheat if your immune system's fighting wheat, or dairy if your immune system's fighting dairy. You can't have a little because it activates that whole save your life, sympathetic dominant response out of your immune system. Dr. Hirsch, do you want to add to that one?
That was pretty brilliant. I think I would say to Christy, you're absolutely right that there are those components, and that saunas and some of these other things can be incredibly supportive, and that all of our labs are imperfect. So you have to remember that it is data, but if your immune system is not functioning well because you have heavy metals, chemicals, and or molds, you're not going to get a test like on the Lyme testing that you're talking about that's actually going to show you much, because the immune system is often left field, and you need an intact immune system if you're going to use it as a testing agent. And then you also need an intact immune system in order to get rid of these infections. So just like Dr. Tom was saying, you have to make sure if you've got infections, even if you don't know which one it is, that you're addressing the heavy metals, the chemicals, the molds, the other things that are compromising the immune system's ability to take care of those infections and manage those infections. Because really, we're 90% bug cells in this body and 10% human cells, which always blows my mind. And so it's important to remember that most of the time we have balance with these infections. But when we get a number of these toxins, and when the emotions are off and we're not living where our spiritual values, then all of a sudden the immune system's off in left field. These infections can become opportunistic. So it's all part of this whole picture. And I totally applaud you. That was very articulate what you said.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I had something blow my mind a few months ago, and I've mentioned it once here, I think, on Facebook Live, but here's another point to that. It was in my interview with Dr. Bland, when he said to us, we all know that there's 10 times more cells of bacteria in our body than human cells, right? We've known that for many years. And that a teaspoon of stool, just a teaspoon, has more bacteria than all the stars in the known universe. And what? I mean, what? And Jeff Bland does not exaggerate. That just caught me as to how much bacteria we have in our bodies. But then a paper came out a few months ago that tells us there are 10 times more viruses in our body than bacteria. 10 times more. So the whole world of viruses is about to explode, not just because of this problem we're currently having, and viruses are not bad for you. Bad viruses are bad for you. Mm-hmm. But there's so many good ones that we know so little about right now that the human body is made of. So it's all about finding balance, finding synchrony with all of this. And this whole concept of base hits, it supports our human tissue, it supports the probiotic bacteria, and it supports the beneficial viruses. I don't even know if there's a term yet for beneficial viruses versus pathogenic viruses. Like we have probiotic bacteria and dysbiotic bacteria. So I'm not sure on the viral front yet about that. Thea asked the question, is there a connection with restless leg syndrome and nervous system? Please explain a little bit. I have pain in my right thigh.
So I have found that restless leg can be due to a number of deficiencies. So sometimes there's a B vitamin deficiency or an iron deficiency, and sometimes it's due to a toxicity, whether it's heavy metals or infections can definitely be a cause that I've seen before where we start treating infections and then the restless leg improves. But it definitely has to do with some sort of nervous system toxicity, but we're not entirely sure how that works, but that's been my experience.
Right. Agreed. Agreed. Laura's here from Southern Oregon. Hey, Laura. Laura's a part of our team. Been part of the theDr.com for almost as long as I have. So that doesn't mean she's old. I'm certainly older. But hello, Laura. Jean is here. Hello, I'm from Palatine. That's just outside Chicago. I always find positive mindset a great thing to address so that we can overcome our physical challenges. Amen to that. Thank you for sharing that.
Amen.
Ale asked the question, how do you know if you're living in mold or if it's just from food?
So to determine whether or not you're in a moldy environment, I recommend doing what's called the ERMI test, which is ERMI, not like the guy in Sesame Street, that's Ernie. So it stands for Environmental Relative Moldiness Index. And you can get the test at mycometrics.com, mycometrics.com. And you have an option if you have hardwood floors or if you have carpeting, they'll guide you through which one you should get. But that is a DNA test to determine if mold is in the environment. It's not going to tell you where it is. It's going to tell you if it's present. So the reason why I like it as like the first test is because it is a DNA test. So it's going to collect not just mold spores, which is what you get on a Petri dish, but it's also going to get mycotoxins. And as we talked about, that is also what we check in the urine is urinary mycotoxins. Okay, so that's why the DNA test is quite good. Then to determine exactly where it is, you're going to want to get those mold plates, and the company that I like is called Immunolytics, IMMUNOLYTICS.com. And you can put those mold plates out in different rooms once you know there is mold in the home from the ERMI to determine exactly where it is. And that's going to check for the mold spores. Hopefully that's helpful for you. And it's important to remember too, that you're checking not just in your home, but you're also going to check in your car and you're also going to check in your work because your exposure can be really from any place that you're exposed to at this time. And then it's important to remember that if you have it in your body, but you don't have it in your environment right now, it just means it's from the past.
And I can't tell you how often when I've gotten a car rental, and Laura, by the way, covers all of my transportation. Thank you, Laura. And make sure that, there's a car when I land if I need it and all that. How many times I get in a car, you just took a flight and you got to the city where I have to go to the hotel now and be on stage in the morning. And so you get in the car, you start the car and oh no. Because when you turn the car on and the fan turns on, you get blasted right away from the vents with mold. So if you smell something, when you turn your car on, you say, well, it's not too bad. It's bad. If you can smell it at all, if you can tell it's there, it's bad. Don't drive that car. And so probably 2 or 3 out of every 10 car rentals, I've got to take my bags out of the trunk, take the keys, go inside, stand in line. I've just flown 4 hours or 6 hours or whatever it should be, but you have to take care of yourself. Well, it's only a 20-minute drive to the hotel. I'll be fine. You have to take care of yourself. That's a base hit, knowing that, I'm tired. I don't want to do this. But it's when you're being exposed, and if you don't stop that exposure as quickly as you possibly can, then you're sabotaging the results that you're working so hard to try and get. Okay.
So true. And the same goes for hospital rooms or hotel rooms.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Always. Always. I leave my bags outside in the hall. I put the key in, open the door, hold the door open, take 2 steps in, hold the door with my hand and go, no. And then I go back down to the front desk as tired as I am, because you don't want to compromise your environment. You just do not want it. Well, it's not too bad. You can't be a little pregnant. You know, you can't have a little exposure when you're already suffering. You've crossed the threshold of tolerance. So a little bit is not just a little bit. A little bit is just more gasoline that rears up the fire. It doesn't start the fire. The fire's already in your body.
Right.
So it's all the little things you do that accumulatively will help you win the ball game on that one. Our link is here for the event we're hosting in June. This is what's going to be like every day with Dr. Evan and I, that once you've registered, you've got access to all of that. And we'll be going through all of the questions that come in. Cindy says, causes of bone and joint pain, hair loss, eyebrow loss, alligator skin, bloating to the point of looking pregnant, including teeth and gum issues, brittle nails with lines that can be felt when touching them, difficulty sleeping through the night, and chronic daytime fatigue. Help.
So I think I got that whole list.
Yeah.
It definitely sounds like there's some autoimmune thyroid issues going on. Now it depends on which way the ridges are going on the skin, or on the nails rather, but brittle nails, weight loss or weight gain rather, you can't lose weight, bloating, constipation or slowing down of the gut, hair loss, oftentimes loss of the lateral third, hair of the lateral third of the eyebrow, all can be a part of a thyroid picture. And so 90% of all low thyroid is autoimmune. So that's Hashimoto's. And so really important, and thyroid issues are really 2 conditions. It's the autoimmune component, and then it's the low thyroid component. So you have to look at all of those causes like we've been talking about: heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, allergies, negative emotional patterns, and electromagnetic fields. And then you also have to optimize your thyroid while you are removing those causes.
Really a comprehensive answer. Great answer. What I would think of immediately is thyroid, and I have to address the gut, the gut is the gateway in the development of the autoimmune diseases. But with these kinds of symptoms, we know there's malabsorption and the bloating when you eat and all of that. Have to also address the gut. Don't forget.
Yep.
Jane says, my husband's hands shake. MDs say idiopathic. We are concerned. Any recommendations?
That's a great question. And a friend of mine, Dr. Drew, actually just had an essential tremor summit. So definitely check out Drew Christensen. So if you have a tremor, that indicates neurotoxicity. So whether the toxicity is in the central nervous system or in the peripheral nervous system, there is something that is affecting the nerves in the hand and the arm that is causing this tremor. Now, this could be a tremor that ends up leading to Parkinson's, or it could be an essential tremor that's not. But either way, it's indicating toxicity, neurotoxicity. And so, like with anything that we're looking at, we always want to look at what sort of deficiencies might be present and what sort of toxicities might be present. Because when you have a broad enough differential, when you're looking at a broad enough number of causes, you know that if you leave no stone unturned, you're going to be more successful. So I definitely recommend that you take a look at all of these different deficiencies and toxicities that we're going to be talking about on the program that we've mentioned today.
So for those of you that don't know what the word idiopathic means, that Jane's husband was told it was idiopathic, it means it just happens. It just happens, which means I don't know what this is.
Exactly.
But they throw a big word at you so that you say, oh, okay, right? So it's not just idiopathic. The human body is designed to thrive. And there has to be something that's triggering this. Right. Certainly, and as Dr. Evan just went through, certainly it's very similar to you have rheumatoid arthritis or you have Hashimoto's thyroid. Where is it coming from? You have to be looking at the bigger picture. And the one that's right in front for me with this kind of a presentation is the blood test called the NeuroZoomer Plus. It looks at 48 different antibodies to your brain and your nervous system. So we can identify, is your immune system currently attacking your brain and your nervous system and causing these tremors? So that's the first place to start, but you have to look at the big picture for this one.
Nice job.
Susan says, ITP in 5-year-old, chronic, meaning has remained since developed. Ideas, going to start gluten-free.
So ITP is idiopathic thrombocytic purpura. So basically, it's an autoimmune condition that is attacking, gosh, it's been so long since I've thought about this, that's attacking the platelets that ends up causing bleeding issues, as far as I remember it. And so once again, it is autoimmune. And so the same causes are going to apply here. There's an exposure somewhere along the line: heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, allergies, negative emotional patterns, electromagnetic fields. And so sometimes, especially in kids, this may be environmental, or it might also be through the placenta. So as moms, you dump all your good stuff and all your not so good stuff into the baby. And so sometimes that can be a little bit of a trigger when the baby comes out, and then maybe there's some additional exposures, or there's a reaction then to some foods. And so by removing gluten, dairy, some of these other ones, it can be incredibly supportive, but it's all about draining the tank, getting rid of whatever toxicities are present that are causing that immune system to be triggered, to be attacking, in this case, the platelets.
Great answer, very comprehensive, and great that you mentioned that about mom and the placenta, especially a concern in a first pregnancy. Because second pregnancy, not so much of a problem because mom's already detoxed. It all went to the first baby. Like breast milk, the amount of toxins in a first child breast milk is so much higher than in following pregnancies for the same woman. Because she's already detoxed her breasts, and that was 25 years of accumulation of those phthalates in the breast tissue that came out in the breast milk to first baby. Whereas second baby, mom doesn't have the phthalates in her body at that same high concentration anymore. So especially important in first pregnancies when you're looking at childhood issues and did they carry forward into baby. It doesn't have to be limited to that, but even more, which mom means if this was a first pregnancy for you and your child has ITP, I'd be looking at what's in your body, not just what's in your child's body.
Right.
Hermina says, I have Hashimoto's and in the last year have very itchy arms and around the neck area. I've been gluten-free for the past 8 years. Now, what is my problem? Help.
So anything can really cause, any food can really cause a rash or an itchiness, but it's very possible that you may have a fungus. There could be a fungus among us. And so that could be, especially if you have itchy anus and or itchy ears, that may mean mold or yeast like candida. And once again, those things will trigger the autoimmunity that can cause Hashimoto's.
Really good answer. Very comprehensive. Melissa's here from Virginia. Blanche says hello from LA. Thea says hello from Suriname. Suriname. Sorry, I don't know my geography. Suriname, is that? I don't know where that is. Christy says, please address relapsing fatigue spells that may be, okay, we did that one. Okay, let's move on. Christy says, thank you for your answers. Does the cell danger response, if activated, work by making the body think everything is a threat?
Absolutely. Yeah, Christy, you are very bright. So the cell danger response, for people who aren't familiar with it, is the idea that when the cell detects that there is a problem, it's going to have a particular reaction. So oftentimes it's going to go quiescent. So it's going to try to protect itself by shutting off its machinery so that things like infections can't come into the cell, take over the machinery, and replicate themselves ad nauseum. So absolutely, the cell danger response plays a role. But the causes are generally the same. So it's still all of those toxicities that we mentioned that are actually causing the cell danger response, in addition, oftentimes, to some vagal nerve toxicity, whether that is from a physical toxin or mental emotional.
Mindy says, wondering if you have any insight into my chronic fatigue, exercise fatigue, brain fog, etc. Compared to my, quote, former active self, end quote, of a couple years ago, it's practically debilitating. I have a prescription for Adderall, but I try not to take it every day if I don't have to really focus or concentrate, and only half the dose early in the morning when I do. However, I notice a severe difference in my energy on the days I don't take it. I almost feel like I can't normally function without it. But do you think this could actually be contributing to my chronic fatigue, lack of energy in some way?
Well, it's not doing you any favors long term. But what it's doing in the short term is it's whipping your adrenal glands, which is that little triangular gland that sits on top of the kidneys and produces cortisol as well as other adrenergic or stress producing or stress managing hormones. So it's helping right now, but over the long term, which kind of got you into this predicament, is that the adrenal gland ran out of steam. Cortisol is our main anti-inflammatory. You've probably heard of cortisone or prednisone, which is cortisol blown up 1,000 times. But cortisol is our body's natural inflammatory. So when you have inflammation, which by definition is the immune system reacting to something, then that cortisol gets diminished over time. And what ends up happening is that your get up and go got up and went. So that's the reason why your energy isn't great throughout the day. You're probably crashing at around 2 o'clock every day, maybe at 11. Your blood sugars are kind of wonky. And your picture of kind of awake and asleep or awake and tired during the day also then looks like this at night, where you're not able to get really good sleep. So once again, it comes back to those 10 categories of causes: deficiencies, things that aren't in the body that are supposed to, and toxicities, things that are in the body that aren't supposed to be there. So I've seen that every single person that I've seen with chronic fatigue has something from 8 to 10 of these categories. So you have to figure out which causes you have. Is it adrenal gland dysfunction, thyroid, mitochondrial dysfunction? You know, what are you doing with your lifestyle habits? Neurotransmitter dysfunction or deficiency. And then all those toxicities that I'm going to say again, because it's important to get into your mind: heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, allergies, negative emotional patterns, electromagnetic frequency. So you just have to figure out which one of those you have, or what combination of these, because the combination that you have is going to be different than the combination of somebody else who's listening to this and watching this right now. So you have to figure out what's specific to you, because then you can really focus on which causes you have and have success.
Really great comprehensive answer. And Mindy, you don't really have time to mess around. That from what you're describing here, this is a case of someone who has been kind of going down the rabbit hole of wearing out. And so if you put jet fuel into your Volkswagen, Adderall, which is just speed, you put jet fuel into your Volkswagen, you can run adequately, right? But jet fuel burns so much hotter, you're going to burn the engine out, which is what Dr. Evans is talking about here. So you need to find a functional medicine practitioner that has the big picture view here. So you can go to theDr.com. We have a clinical services department. You can go to Dr. Evans' site, but you need somebody to walk this walk with you, but who's been there 100 times already and doesn't waste time. because your symptom pattern is one that says this body is worn down, worn out, and this brain is worn down. Adderall is speed. It's just speed.
Right.
And why do you give speed to kids who have attention deficit? Well, wait a minute. They've got attention deficit, they're hyperactive. You want to calm them down, so you give them Adderall. Why do you give them speed to calm them down? Because their brains are dysfunctional. Their brains are not functioning on all 8 cylinders. There's not enough blood flow getting to the brain. The first question today, we talked about blood flow into the brain and SPECT scans and autistic kids and all that. So what you've described here, Mindy, in just a few sentences suggests to us that don't try to do this yourself, and you're probably not, because you're here at Facebook Live tonight, and thank you for being here, but work with someone that knows what they're doing on this one. Critically important. And this will be the last one. Jean says, that event sounds great, being able to find the causes, because I have so many chronic conditions. So we've got the link here for the event for everyone to please register. I have part of my brain tumor still in my hypothalamus pituitary gland. I have fibromyalgia, the Arnold-Chiari malformation, epilepsy, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoporosis, inflammatory bowel disease, plantar fasciitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, TMJ, candida infections, etc. And I've been doing yoga, deep breathing, and meditation for the last 2.5 years, along with following organic diet without any preservatives, GMOs, high amounts of sugar, or artificial sweeteners. I was told not to do intermittent fasting, or I'm not sure about detoxing, by my fibromyalgia doctor, because I have leaky gut and adrenal fatigue. That's quite a list. It's quite a list. And you're doing great work. You're working really hard. You're doing all the little base hits to help your body function better. There was no question here. There was just a declaration of what you've got. And you started off by saying that event, our event, sounds great, looking at causes. And that's actually what we're doing, why we interviewed all of these greats that we've interviewed. And as you can tell, Dr. Hirsch knows his stuff. And some of you know my interview style is to go right for the jugular of the topic. We don't do, so how did you get into this area? Why are you interested in fatigue? Nobody cares. I mean, it's a nice story, but we want to get in there. What have you got? What's of value here? And that's what we've done in these interviews. Is it 36? Is that, do you know how many guests?
Well, we have 40. You and I both do lectures as well, and so that's 42 total.
Well, those last 2 are really important, right? So join us. Please register for this event, and please share this with your family and friends, this event. We really want to reach as many people as we can to help carry this message out to the world, And there's one more thing I'd like you to do, everyone. If you're driving, and if you happen to drive, if you're on a freeway and you have to drive through a toll booth, pay for the car behind you. Just when you go up to give the attendant your money for the toll, just say, here's enough for the car behind me also, and then drive away. Can you imagine what happens for that person when the toll booth operator says, no, the car in front of you said, have a nice day. They paid your toll. It's like, what? What? It's a paradigm shift. Mm-hmm. So be kind out there in the world this week. Do something that you normally might not do to pay it forward, to bring kindness into the world, and register for our event, and tell your friends and family to register for our event. Dr. Hirsch, thanks so much for being here today. It's really great to do this with you. It goes so fast, and it's just great. And I look forward to this adventure in June when we do the Q&As together. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Tom.
You bet. And thank you, everyone. See you next week. Bye-bye.